like to have them do a couple songs before Charlie Chin comes out. The Back to Bodie play will be here in October, but it's next weekend in Sonora.
So we're playing at the Holman Theater in Sonora, Saturday afternoon at 2 and Sunday evening at 7.
Gone by, things were so much clearer. Life and death were cut and dried. Love was so much dearer. We fell into wild ways in those days. This place was really something then. We lived for every minute. A man could die before your eyes, and the next day you forget. Yeah, we fell into wild ways in those days. Goodbye, darling, no to Bodie. Vainglorious Bodie. Ever young there, for every man, ruled by the gun there, living by a glory, governed by the season, for every man, with no place for reason, living by a glory, and whiskey flowed like water. Lovely daughter, living by a Bodie, came right into town beneath the Bodie moon. Goodbye, darling, goodbye, darling, vainglorious Bodie.
I don't know how many of you know Bodie is a ghost town over on the other side of Sierra Nevada. And it was the last big heyday, the last big ghost town. They came from the last big gold rush town. They came from Sonora over to Bodie, and they found gold after the gold had played out in this area. And the whole families lived there in the town of Bodie up until the 30s, and now it's an old deserted ghost town. You know, back in those days, they had a lot harder time with entertainment because all they had was themselves and whatever was around them for entertainment. So this little song is about what kids find to play with when they are looking for entertainment.
Down there?
Yeah. In a few. Okay, I'm sorry. In a field near town
Charlie Chin. He's a songwriter and a storyteller.
Good evening. I'm just going to take 1 minute to get a chair. The chair disappeared. I'll be right back.
Wait, here you go.
The instrument I have in my hands, relatively old instrument, comes from China, where it's called, depending on your dialect, sam yin, or sam yang, means 3 strings. Originally it came from North Africa. It was brought to China during the Tang Dynasty, roughly about 700 AD, with Arab traders. It became immensely popular. Well, became immensely popular with street musicians, the guys that hung out in the wine shops. Generally, though, it was not considered a suitable instrument for a gentleman to play. I suppose that's true of any banjo in any culture. Of the men that came in 1849 to California, many fled southern China because they had just gone through a series of events called the Opium Wars. For those of you who may not remember your high school history, it wasn't that China was trying to sell opium to England. England was selling opium in China. And China didn't want them to. There was a war, 2 wars, so-called wars, both of which China lost. And the English demanded that China pay for the cost of the expeditions, which China had to do in silver. And the only way they could do that was by taxing the peasants about 10 years in advance. That didn't work out very well. Thousands of peasants were driven off the land. At the same time, very exciting news came from across the ocean. That there was a mountain of gold in a place called California. weapon ships, many times at group rate. They headed for America, California. After a while, it became such a profitable business. Companies were formed, overseas companies, to get these men over there. American companies would put up big signs in southern China. They read like this: "Come all you men of Canton and Fujian province. Beyond the Eastern Ocean, beyond the fragrant islands lies California. All Americans are rich and love the Chinese people. Gold is in abundance and lies on the ground in open view. One need only pick up the big pieces, for the little pieces are left where they lay. All men who wish to make their fortune come to the sign of this house in Hong Kong or Macau. Don't be afraid if you do not have the passage money. The Americans will gladly extend you credit, which you can easily pay back with the fortune you will surely find." I was only a boy in old Canton town when I first heard the stories that were going around. Uncle made his fortune and he wore a gold ring. If you asked him about it, he gladly would sing. Dig for the gold, dig for the gold. I'll be a rich man in China before I grow old. Well, I boarded a ship, it was all made of wood. The bedding was lousy and the food was no good. 6 companies met us on Frisco's long pier. Of 300 started, only 200 here, singing dig for the gold, dig for the gold. I'll be a rich man in China before I grow old. Well, I walked to the hills, my fortune to find. Of hardship and want, well, I paid it no mind. But the jumpers were waiting and they wished us all dead. They took all our claims and put lumps on our head. Singing dig for the gold, dig for the gold. I'll be a rich man in China before I grow old. Well, I headed for Hangtown, the biggest of camps. There was gambling and murder by the light of their lamps. Of the money I had, it was gone in a wink, for I spent it on women and foul whiskey drink. Singing dig for the gold, dig for the gold. I'll be a rich man in China before I grow old. Brandy Gulch was my next stop, but who should I meet but a crazy old miner they called One-Eyed Pete. I picked up a 6-gun and put down the spade. By robbing and killing our fortune was made. Dig for the gold, dig for the gold. I'll be a rich man in China before I grow old. Vigilantes, they caught us at a place called Pig Hill. Old Pete with a hang loose, the miners that kill. They banged me and beat me till they thought I was dead. But I lived till the morning and I ran off instead, singing dig for the gold, dig for the gold. I'll be a rich man in China before I grow old. Well, I ran to the place where we hid all our loot. I bought me some new clothes and a pair of new boots. Took a trip back to China on the next swelling tide. When they asked me about it, I turned and I lied, said it was digging for gold, digging for gold. I'll be a rich man in China before I grow. Well, very shortly, a number of devices were used to pretty much push out the Chinese from the gold field. To be fair, most people who weren't Americans were pushed out of the gold fields.
The Chinese had to undergo what was known as a head tax, where you paid $5 a month for the right to be in California. That broke most men. They had to go bust. Some hung around and scraped a little dust, but most had to head for the cities. And out of California, where it was 99% men, most of the opportunities had to do with things that European American men weren't particularly interested in doing. No women. So, cooking and washing became opportunities. And that was pretty much the situation for a while. Oh, of course, the Chinese did work in light manufacturing, making shoes, cigars, boots. But something happened which changed all of that, and indirectly led to one of the great mysteries in Chinese American history. You see, the discovery of gold in California suddenly meant the United States was the eastern seaboard, a bunch of territories, all the square states, and then California, a major seaport on the Pacific River. But the problem was getting people and things from the East Coast to the West Coast. You could go overland, but that took about 166 days. You could take a ship. You could take a ship, but the ship, even the fastest ship, took about 8 or 9 days, and most people opted for variations thereof. So what was needed was some quick way to get people and things from the East Coast to the West Coast. And of course, as you know, what they decided to do was build the railroad. Now, the railroad was right away problematic. Not on the East Coast. There were lots of people arriving, fleeing from a terrible famine and various other things, political oppression, who were more than willing to work on this railroad, but on the West Coast, there weren't very many people who were willing to work on it. Somebody had suggested Chinese workers, but it was generally accepted that Chinese men were too small to work on the railroad. And this is not a strange idea, because in fact, a railroad rail, 12 feet long, weighs about 500 pounds. Certainly no single man or 3 or 4 men could lift it by themselves easily, day after day, mile after mile. But it was discovered that the Chinese arrived and immediately formed their own work gangs, usually about 10 to 20 men. And they immediately decided on a foreman, a cook, somebody who would do all the various things that they needed to be a self-contained unit. And they worked very, very quickly. As a matter of fact, the record still stands that the longest amount of track laid in one day, 10 miles, was done by Chinese crews up near Promontory Point in Utah. But this great mystery in Chinese American history is the overnight disappearance of 12,000 Chinese men from the face of the earth. You see, we know that there were about 12,000 Chinese men working on the Transcontinental Railroad. But on May 10, 1869, apparently every single one of those men disappeared for 24 hours. Because careful inspection of all the photographs taken during the celebrations reveal that there's not one Chinese face in any known photograph. We know they returned the next day because many of them were able then to move on to other railroads throughout the Southwest and the West. Some of them actually went up to Canada and helped build the great Transcontinental Railroad of Canada. But this mystery has always bothered me. And it's the reason why, when I hear this song, I always have mixed emotions. I've been working on a railroad all the livelong day. I've been working on a railroad, Lord, just to pass the time away. Can't you hear the whistle blowing? They rise up so early in the morning. Can't you hear the captain calling, hey boy, blow your horn? My granddaddy worked on a railroad. He came to find a better way. He pound his heart out. Pound his heart out for pennies a day. So when I see an old freight train or hear one rolling along, I just remember my granddaddy and how he sang this song. I've been working on a railroad all the livelong days. I've been working on a railroad, Lord, just to try and make my pay. Can't you hear the whistle blowing? Or I was up so early in the morning. Can't you hear the captain calling, hey boy, blow your horn. Hey boy, blow your horn. Someone's in the kitchen with Dinah. Someone's in the kitchen that I know. Someone's in the kitchen with Dinah. Lord, why don't they let that poor boy go? Can't you hear the whistle blowing? It was up so early in the morning. Can't you hear the captain calling, hey boy, blow your horn. Hey boy, blow your horn. The building of the Transcontinental Railroad was supposed to bring about an economic boom. When it was completed, 1869, 1870, there wasn't an economic boom. It was actually an economic depression. And it was decided pretty much universally that the Chinese were responsible. A large anti-Chinese movement began in the West, in the territories of the state of California, Washington, Oregon, Nevada, California. Most of the Chinese were chased off of the land. Some of the men actually took the train they had just helped to build to the East Coast and founded some of the Chinatowns that we have in the Northeast. But generally, things got from bad to progressively worse. By 1882, of course, as you know, the United States instituted the China's Exclusion Act, which effectively stopped Chinese immigration to the United States. Boom. There's only a few minor loopholes, which a couple dozen, maybe 100 here, 100 there, people were able to enter the United States. But the problem, of course, was that most Californians were worried that overnight California would become essentially, as they said at that time, a yellow nation. And so there was a great deal of work and pressure put upon the fact that this yellow pearl had to be stopped. But people got through, not a lot. And the situation that they lived in, this peripheral existence where they were pretty much forbidden either by law or social convention to join most professions, meant that people lived, they survived. Most of the people who were here were referred to as sojourners. There were men who were not allowed to bring their wives or their family here, so they could only come here and work. They were not allowed by law to become citizens, so they could only become residents. And some of them spent the larger portion of their lives here. I know there are certain older members of my family who belong to that generation which ended somewhere just before World War II. These were the Wakil, the Bachelor Society. Strange situation. People visiting Chinatowns in the United States would notice that there weren't very many women, practically none. And they referred to the Chinese community here as the Bachelor Society, when of course the complete opposite was true. Most of the men here were married, which is why they had to go overseas to make money, to support families back at home. I'm thinking in particular of when I was a child and some of my older uncles who had families in China and who had spent a lifetime in the States would join us for weddings or funerals or birthdays. And it was at that particular time that I would find out a little bit about that experience. I'll give you an example. My Uncle Bing, an unusual man, was a bit of a mystery to me when I was very young. And I would ask him questions, which was all it normally took to get him going. For instance, once I asked him, Uncle Bing, where did you learn to speak English? You didn't go to school here, right? Oh, no. No, I learned to speak English and come here, this country, a long time ago. I come this country, this 1927, maybe 28, huh? Oh yeah, this is a long time ago. That time, I work at the laundry. See, those days you only can work the laundry. Maybe you less a lot of laundry, but that's all. So working the laundry a long time, maybe 3-4 years. But then depression time comes, see? So everybody's scared, say, oh, maybe no money. Save the money, don't send out laundry. Used to send for Chinese guy, but now they say, no, don't send the laundry, you save the money. So then this is my business go hell, see? So I worry all the time, I talk to somebody, I say, hey, what am I gonna do? This is a depression time. My business is gonna go hell. I have to do something, huh? He said, hey, you have to talk the English for those people. I said, I can't talk English. He said, don't worry. You know customer always want those American people, always want to talk to the customer, huh? You stand in your store, they're like a little bird. Chip, 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 chip. Always say, hey, hello, how are you? So you have to learn some English. I said, what am I going to do? He said, don't worry. You go Chinatown on Sunday, go to a Christian church. They teach a Bible class for free, you learn English. I said, hey, that's a good idea. I have to go Chinatown anyway, pick a newspaper, grocery on a Sunday. Maybe I go to a Christian church, take the Bible school, learn English for free. Yeah, next Sunday, huh? Go to Chinatown, find out the church, everybody's so friendly. Oh, welcome brother, welcome brother. So I said, oh, thank you, thank you. They give me a book. I said, what's this? This is a gift for you. What book? They said, this is a Bible. I said, this is a Bible? Yeah, this is a very important book. So, oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah. So then you have to stand there, you sing those holy songs. Let me tell you something. This life, you'll never get something for nothing. You want to learn English, have to sing the holy song first. Then they take you to the back, give you coffee and a donut. Those are donuts. This is the kind of donut they have. It's a chocolate donut. I love it so much. It's a so good donut. Still this day, I like this kind of donut. So then it's an English lesson, ABC, how you do, so happy you here, so. So this is what I do every Sunday. And then maybe 3-4 Sundays go by. And this woman, this American woman, her name, Miss Elizabeth McDonald. See, very nice. She come up, she said, hello, brother. I said, hello. She said, have you heard good news? I said, what good news you talk about? She said, Christ is coming. I said, Christ is coming? I thought he's here already, 2,000 years ago. She said, no, he's coming again. I think myself, he's coming again. They treat him so bad last time, why do you want to come back? I don't say nothing, because I want to learn English for free. So every Sunday, yeah, talk, shake a hand, goodbye, huh? But this day I'm a young man, see? This is a bad thing, see? Because I'm a young man. Miss McDonald, this is the first American woman I really know. Well, where your mother? You meet some other American woman. This we call those a low-class woman. They see Chinese boy. They're like a Chinese boy, but you have to pay money. In Chinatown, we call it a chingai nui. This means a steamed chicken woman. Because it's like you go to the restaurant, you see the steamed chicken there, you have some money, you can buy. See? But Miss Elizabeth McDonald, not like that. This is a good girl. Very nice, very sweet. She's very taller than me. And light brown hair, and skin like a tofu, huh? Very smooth. And so Chinese people say, woman is like a pepper. Big one, sweet. Little one, spicy. So she's a very big woman, very sweet. She's very nice. So of course, as time goes by, I only thinking Mr. McDonald. Every day work the laundry, say, she's so nice. So I make up my mind. Next Sunday, you shake her hand to say goodbye, huh? But I don't let go. Then her face is pink. I told her, oh, Mr. McDonald, loving you. She laughed. Yeah, I love you too. You're one of God's children. I said, God, I don't want nothing to do with it. I love you. I want we married. Oh, then and she cried. Huh? I said, what's the matter? She said, can't marry you. I said, why not? She said, because first you have to take a bath, and then I have to ask my father. I said, why I have to take a bath? She said, because you want to come Christ people, you have to take a bath. I said, oh, this is simple. I can take bath. For come Christ people? Sure, this is easy. You ask your father, I take a bath, then we marry. So now she's smart. She's so happy. So we walk, go to Charlie car. Oh, those days, this is a big thing. Huh? Walk hand in hand, this Chinatown, everybody stay us. So take her, Charlie car, stop talking her. Miss McDonald, loving you, oh, loving you, so we talking each other. And then she go to Charlie car, and she wave, goodbye. I don't see her hand no more. This is the last time I see that woman, huh? Mr. McDonald, he find out we want married, all hell break loose. Yeah, they put this white woman here in the church. It's a middle-aged woman, so ugly, hurt your eye. Look her. Miss McDonald, take away someplace. I asked her father, he said, no, I can't tell you. She have to go away. I'm heartbroken, huh? This is a terrible my day. Make me so sad. And I don't feel eat maybe 3-4 weeks. I take those Bible, throw it, because I'm so angry, huh? But every day, when I work in the laundry, talk those American people. So slow, more, I understand. And every day, read American newspaper, look up the meaning of a word in the dictionary. So slow. I understand more. So you see now, I talk English, I don't have accent. The China's Exclusion Act stayed on the books until 1943. The reason why was pretty simple. I mean, there was no pressure to take it off the books, but of course, those of you who remember, during World War II, China was one of the allies, and this was somewhat inconvenient to have an exclusion act against one of the allies. There was a great deal of fanfare. But in 1943, the China's Exclusion Act was struck down. And the quota set for arriving Chinese at 105 people per year. The quota set in the same year for people from the United Kingdom was 66,000 a year. I'm not going to comment. But this issue of 105 people per year meant, however small, Chinatowns and small Chinese communities in the States began to grow slowly as families began to arrive, but only a handful at a time. Then by 1968, July 1st, because of the Civil Rights Act and various other things, it was discovered that if President Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act, which made it illegal to discriminate in the United States because of country, color, country of origin, so forth, well, then there was a problem because all of these restrictive quotas that existed for Latin countries and Asian countries had to be struck down. And the quotas normalized to the same numbers given to everybody else. This wasn't bad, but it meant that by 1970, Chinese communities, which had for 2 generations or more, lived very quietly and off to the side, began to explode because it was no longer the men coming just to work. It was whole families who were planning to stay. Many people who returned to the communities to try to work, see what could be done, despaired because it appeared to be an insurmountable job. But for those community workers who did work on it, they solaced themselves with the fact that there was an old Chinese folktale, which I will now repeat. A man woke up one morning and noticed that the shadow of a mountain was covering his garden. So after breakfast, he got a shovel and a pail, went to the top of the mountain, filled the pail, walked down the mountain, and dumped the pail off about, 700, 800 yards over there. One of his neighbors asked, what are you doing? And he explained, I'm moving this mountain. Of course, there was a lot of laughter. He was told, you cannot possibly move that mountain. And he explained, well, if I don't finish the job, I'll give this shovel and pail to my children, and if they don't finish the job, they'll give it it to their children. And as big as this mountain is, it can't get any bigger. And eventually, we'll move this mountain. When the sun comes up, burning last night's traces, and replaces with bird song, sung in the morning. Today is only one day more, tomorrow afternoon, preceding what will be tomorrow, running on what it can borrow. Tomorrow comes in soon, I'm depending on it. If I call out and ask you for a favor, will you answer me without pause if you are able? Today it may be something that I've never asked before, and your answer can be what you can do. You know it really doesn't matter if it can't come true. Hey, let your answer go. I'm depending on, even though I know that mountains can't be moved. I've heard a story of a fool who tried, and proved. Every step we take gets us farther from where we are. What we've done and where we have been has brought us here and now. Today is only one day more till tomorrow afternoon. Let's see it in together. You know today will soon be through. Help me with tomorrow, I'm depending on you. Well, there have been Chinese people here in California for at least 150 years. Actually, they've been here longer. But most Californians don't want to discuss it because it has to do with California history. You see, if you go to school here in the United States, we pretty much carry British luggage when it comes to education. And so that means that they kind of dismiss the fact that Spain ruled what is now California for a couple of hundred years. And the galleon trade, when Spain was at the height of its powers, ran all the way from Spain to the Philippines, which meant, and we have documentation, that there were Filipinos and Chinese passing through what is today California, Mexico, in the 1600s, maybe about 150 years before there was a United States of America. But even so, it's the other side of the world. For instance, there are more Asians here now in the United States than there has ever been. And yet the Asian Pacific Islander population represents only 2.9% of the total population of the United States. Oh, don't be misled. If you live in Hawaii, California, or the northeastern corridor, you would be under the impression that there were a lot of Asians here, but there aren't. I know. The result is that at 2.9%, once you leave Hawaii, California, parts of the West Coast, and the northeastern corridor, there are very, very few Asians. And in fact, the average American has never actually met an Asian face-to-face. This is why, as time has progressed, I have become an expert on all matters of Asian culture. Not just China, I mean all of Asia, everything from the proper bowing techniques when meeting Japanese businessmen, the turmoil at the end of the Taiping Rebellion, the finer points of Raku pottery, the nature of Vietnamese bar girls, little towns outside of Seoul, Korea. Why? Well, not because my parents taught me. My parents were too busy giving my brother and I 3 square meals a day and basic survival skills, and certainly not because I was interested when I was a young man. When I was a young man, all I wanted was a date with Aurora Kakahininan, the prettiest Filipino girl in all of New York City. But because there's always somebody waiting at the end of the bar, perhaps a friend of a friend at a cocktail party, or sitting next to me on a long bus ride, somebody wondering how they can test my wonderful storehouse of knowledge, somebody wondering how they can leave me speechless. Sometimes the long process. Excuse me. Yeah, what is it? Where are you from? Well, actually, I'm in California now. I used to live in New York. I was born and raised in Manhattan. No, maybe you misunderstand me. Where are you from? Sometimes short and directed to the point. Hey, yeah, you know karate? Sometimes just polite conversation. I'm sorry to ask you because I'm so embarrassed, but I love it. Every time I go, but I don't know the name. I can only point to it, and it comes with, it has green leafy vegetables and these white crunchy things. I don't know what they are. Lots of mushrooms, and I have no idea what they call, but I could just eat it every day. Sometimes not too bright. Hey, yeah. Where'd you learn to speak English so good? Actually, I don't speak English very good. I speak it very well. Sometimes philosophical. Charlie-san. Oh, what is it, Bernie? What is the sound of one hand clapping? Sometimes patronizing. Charlie, yeah. You know, I've often wondered, why is it so many of our Asian friends seem to suffer from myopia, nearsightedness? Do you have an answer for that? Well, actually, I do. You see, it's hereditary. We were straining our eyes by candlelight 2,000 years ago, writing essays on philosophy and poetry. At the same time, your ancestors were resisting Roman attempts to introduce the Phoenician alphabet and the practice of daily bathing. So it is I who must sit up every night with a mountain of cookbooks, poring over maps of China, Korea, Japan, Tibet, the Philippines. So I'll never be caught without an answer. So I will never be left speechless. I've become an expert on all matters of Asian culture. So because there are very few Asians in many parts of the country, situations like this next song are quite common. To understand the song, all you have to know is a Hong Dao Bing is a summer drink that's made with sweet red beans mixed with milk and soda. Kind of like if you can imagine a very sweet egg cream. And a char siu bao is a baked steamed bun. This song was written because I received a postcard from a young man. And his story went like this. Got a little place, it's way out west. Don't do bad, try to do my best. One day I took a look, you know what I found? I was the only Asian about for 100 miles around. Guess I'm gonna get me a big cowboy hat, learn to play baseball with a bat, invest in a pair of fancy jogging shoes, so I can get rid of these only Chinamen in Great Falls, Montana. myself. No bok choy in the kitchen, no harm you on the shelf. Oh, if you come out, then for mercy's sake, bring me some lap chong and some tofu cake. I'm gonna have to get me a big cowboy hat, learn to play baseball with a bat, invest in a pair of fancy jogging shoes, so I can get rid of these only Chinamen in Great Falls, Montana blues. Well, there's not much scenery, you know, there's only a cow. I think I'd walk a mile toward a char siu bao. Oh, if you come out, yes, for mercy's sake, bring me some lap chong and some tofu cake. Gonna have to get me a big cowboy hat, learn to play baseball with a bat, invest in a pair of fancy jogging shoes. I can get rid of these only Chinamen in Great Falls, Montana blues. Well, if you're ever out Montana way, come on by for a little bitty stay. Then we shall be two instead of one, and this mayonnaise nightmare will be done. I won't need to get me no big cowboy hat. I won't have to learn to play baseball with a bat. I won't need no fancy jogging shoes. I can finally get rid of these only Chinamen in Great Falls, Montana blues. There's a great fallacy that exists in that people frequently think that folk stories are something which have to do with a long time ago or another place. And of course that's not true. Folk stories are constantly evolving, constantly being germinated and growing and developing to meet situations. I'll give you an example. This is a story, folk story, I collected amongst Chinese school children, most of them immigrants, about 10 years ago. Takes place, in this case, in San Francisco. You see, Mrs. Wong arrived with her husband in San Francisco and her 3 children. Mr. Wong immediately found work in a restaurant, chopping vegetables. But Mrs. Wong had great trouble finding work. Everywhere she went, when she knocked on the door, people would say, "Can you speak English?" And she would say, "No, I can't speak English." So they said, "Sorry, no work." She became so desperate. One day she was talking to a neighbor who said to her, "What are you worrying about? You don't have to speak English to get a job here. Come with me to the sewing machine factory. You can get a job there. I know there's an open table." So she dutifully went with her neighbor. They arrived on the outskirts of Chinatown, went up to the 3rd floor, and the manager, without even looking up, said, "Yes, you can have number 17. And she took a good look to see what she had walked into. And what she had walked into was a large rectangular room. And above was a series of fluorescent lights. And underneath it was row after row after row of sewing machines with women working. And these women were all doing the same thing. There was on their left-hand side a large pile of cloth, which they would push through their machines, and on the other side would come a dress. And Mrs. Wong thought to herself, "Well, I can do this." So she sat down at the machine, and she began to press the pedals. And of course, she had to lean forward to watch the needle, because if you're not careful with the needle, it can pierce your finger. And she began to move the cloth through the machine. And this went on and on and on. And she thought to herself, well, it's not hard, but it takes a long time. Until finally, when her feet were tired from pressing the pedals, when her back was tired from leaning forward, when her eyes hurt from staring at the needle for hours, she sat back and rubbed the back of her neck and realized that the entire sewing machine factory was empty except for her and one young girl who had a long single braid down the back of her neck. And Mrs. Wong said, "Young miss, where's everyone else?" The girl was busy sewing and just said over her shoulder, "Oh, Auntie, everybody's left. It's very late. You look tired, Auntie. Maybe you should go home too." And Mrs. Wong thought to herself, "Oh, yeah, I'm tired." Thank you, young miss. I'm going to leave now. So she started to leave the sewing machine factory, but because her eyes hurt so much, she said, "I'm going to wash my eyes in cold water in the ladies' room." So she went into the ladies' room and she began to wash her eyes with cold water. But while she was in the ladies' room, she heard a strange sound. Ching, ching, ching. Ching, ching, ching. She opened the door of the ladies' room and looked out and saw a very strange sight. The young woman was sewing as fast as she possibly could. Her feet were moving so fast it looked like she was dancing. Her hands were moving so fast they were a blur, and dresses were coming out of the machine like birds flying out of a nest. And as she worked, the girl started to sweat. And every time a drop of sweat fell on the sewing machine, it turned into a silver coin. Ching, ching, ching. At her feet was a pile of dimes, quarters, 50-cent pieces, silver dollars. Mrs. Wong had never seen anything like this, so she said, "Wow! What's going on?" The girl became very angry and said, "Oh, Auntie, you spoiled it. I have to go." And as the girl put the change in her pockets, she explained, "There's a secret. If you're the last one in the sewing machine factory, and you work very fast and very hard, when your sweat touches the machine, it turns into silver coins. But you have spoiled it for me now. I have to go." Mrs. Wong thought to herself, "This is very strange. I've never heard such a thing. Let me see." She sat down and she began to sew. She sewed faster and faster, as fast as she possibly could. And as she sewed, sweat began to form on her forehead. And when the drops hit the machine, they turned into silver coins. Dimes, quarters, 50-cent pieces. Ching, ching, ching. She kept sewing for as much as she could, but then finally she was so tired she had to stop, and she looked down. She had made more money than she had made the whole day in just those few minutes. She put the money in her purse and walked out. She was the last one. She walked down the street, past Washington Street, and looked up at all the other garment factories and sewing machine factories and saw that they were all dark. It was true. She was the last one to go home. Ha! She stopped at the 24-hour grocery in Chinatown and bought shrimp and duck and other delicious things to eat. And when she made dinner for her family, even her husband was very concerned and said, "Can we afford this?" And she explained, "We can eat like this every night, now that I know how to make money from a sewing machine." The next day she went back and she looked for the young miss, but she wasn't there. In her place was an older woman who was crying. Mrs. Wong said, "Why are you crying?" The woman explained, "We just got here. My husband can't find work. All I can make is what I make here. We have 4 children. I don't know how we're going to survive." Now, Mrs. Wong became very concerned and said, "This could be me. I'll share the secret with her. This way we can both make extra money." So she told the woman, "You stay late tonight. I'll stay late tomorrow night, and we will alternate. That way we can share the money from the secret." And the woman said, "Well, all right." Mrs. Wong went home, and the next day when she came back, the woman was smiling. And Mrs. Wong whispered, "Did it work?" And the woman said, "Yes, it worked. I didn't believe it. Nobody believed it." "Wait! What do you mean nobody believed it?" "Well, I told a few of the other women." Yes, as the day went on, and it got later and later, none of the women left. Finally, when she was too tired, Mrs. Wong said, "I can't stay any longer." She went home and she walked along Washington Street and she looked up. And all the other garment factories and sewing machines still had their lights on. One woman must have told another woman, told another woman. So children in Chinatown know. If your mother works in a garment factory, she won't be home until very late. because she's hoping to be the last one in the sewing machine factory, so her sweat will turn to silver. I'm going to end with a song that was written quite a while ago, but still relatively valid. Mr. Wu works in the laundry and his wife sews in the shop, and each and every wrinkle tells her tale. A survivor of the hard times and a fighter all his life, but the twinkle in his eye has never failed. There's a kettle on the table and he leans against the wall. He says, excuse my English, but his words speak for us all. He says these hands have washed the clothes. These hands have served the food, heaven knows. This neck has felt the mob's rope, and it's been behind barbed wire. This back has laid railroad track, these arms have been for hire. These hands have fought injustice, and this soul has been on fire. But I'm still here, and going strong, and getting tired of proving I belong. I'm still here and going strong, and getting tired of proving I belong. Mrs. Gomez works a night shift at the pediatric ward. By day she cooks the meals for her own. Doing the big city she has never given up, and fights to give her kids a decent home. There's Mrs. Kim who sells the produce on the corner of the square. People hurry by, but we all know she's there. And so the story goes for another generation, another page, a chapter been turned. Tomorrow is the struggle we face with determination. But yesterday are lessons we have learned. Ooh, Johnny is a young boy who pumps gas to pay for school. His class is getting cut back one by one. John's father marched to Vietnam and his mother marched against. Each shows off the battle scars they've won. Sometimes you hear his voices that come drifting down the hall, but deep inside them both they know it binds us all. Because these hands have washed the clothes, these hands have served the food, heaven knows. This neck has felt the mob's rope, and it's been behind barbed wire. This back has laid railroad track, these arms have been for hire. These hands have fought injustice, and this soul has been on fire. But I'm still here, going strong, and getting tired of proving I belong. I'm still here and going strong, and getting tired of proving I belong. Thank you very much.
Compadres will play for you.
There he is, just there he is.
Everybody do a switch.
Now I'd like to introduce Noe, Rick, and Thomas, Los Compadres, some great guys. You'll love their music.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here this evening. We hope you're enjoying the show up to this point with the fantastic stories and music of Charlie Chin. We are Los Compadres, and we come from San Jose. It's our privilege to perform the music of our people, the Mexicanos, the Chicanos. Now, it is our intent always to educate and to teach our culture to people from who are not of Mexican origin. So, with that in mind, we're going to begin our show by me teaching you how to do a grito, because a grito is very important to our music. A grito goes like this. Something like that. Okay? The higher, the better, the louder, you just. Now, we We give gritos for everything. When we're sad, and when we're happy, of course. So, I want you to see and do a grito. So on the count of 3, everybody go, as loud as you can, okay? 1, 2, 3. Right, you're warmed up. All right. Well, anyway, we're going to do some music about California, about Mexico, about our people. So we like to start out with a very traditional and popular ranchera that goes like this. Ay, 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 canta y no llores, porque cantando se alegra, cielo lindo, los corazones. De la sierra morena, cielito lindo, vienen bajando un par de ojitos negros determination, joy, some of the same emotions that were felt by our ancestors as they migrated north from Mexico to California to join up with the thousands and thousands of Mexicanos who had decided to remain here after California was turned over to the United States by Mexico after the signing of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Now that journey north was was very dangerous a lot of times and time-consuming. It took forever. But with the new invention of the steam locomotive, that journey north was made a little bit easier. So this next song is a tribute to that fantastic, magnificent invention of that industrial revolution, el tren, el ferrocarril, the train. Aboard in! All aboard for California! Oigan, señores, el tren. Even though many of our ancestors have left their families behind, their loved ones, to come to a new world in search of a better life, you can't help but feel homesick for your family, for your country. So this next song the song is called El Emigrado, the immigrant, and it is combined with La Canción Mixteca, and it's a song of sadness, sorrow, homesickness. And it's dedicated to not only the Mexicans who have migrated here, but to all immigrants who have come and left their families behind. So para ustedes, el emigrado. Señores, voy a contarles todo lo que por venir a este país. de la noche comenzó un tren a silbar. Ahí viene ese tren ingrato, ¿dónde nos van a llevar? Qué tristeza, mis compadres, pero ¿qué vamos a hacer? Adiós, mi madre querida, écheme su bendición. Ya me voy al extranjero, donde no hay revolución. Por fin sonó la campana, 2 silbidos pegó el tren. No lloren mis compañeros, que me hacen llorar también. Estoy del suelo donde nací. Inmensa nostalgia invade mi pensamiento. Y al verme tan solo y triste cuando caliento, quisiera llorar, quisiera morir de sentimiento. Oh tierra del sol, suspiro por verte. Ahora que lejos me encuentro sin sin amor. California, beautiful California, and it's a tribute to the beautiful state of California. Cuando vengo a California me paseo por donde quiera, con sus aires tan bonitos, ay qué linda es esta tierra. Los amigos que aquí tengo son mis cuates de verdad, nos vamos a dar la vuelta, vayamos a la
although it's heavy for loneliness.
No, I know, Pato.
Play me a love song.
I love song, sí, como no.
Oh, favor. Remind me of something. Oh,
Let me think. Oh, song, compadre. I may be crying también, but you'll all forgive me if I get a little emotional, but this is a very beautiful love song. It's also something I truly miss living here and not being with my familia. Anyway, a ver si les sale. See if I can get this song without breaking up. I love tortillas and I love them dearly. You'll never know just how sincerely I love the corn ones y también de harina. But when my wife calls out from la cocina, honey, there's no tortilla. There's only bread. There's no tortillas. And I feel so sad. My grief I cannot hide. There's no tortilla for my refrain. Without tortillas, there'd be no burritos. Without the corn ones, there'd be no more Fritos. I love to hold them tenderly and fold them. Oh, how I dread to eat with bread. Believe me, there's no tortilla. There's only pan. There's no tortilla. and that he had a mine, and he was doing quite well. Well, one day, a band of drunken Anglo miners descended on his town. They were on his little camp. They were jealous of his success. And it is said that they tied him to a tree, and they forced him to watch as they repeatedly raped and finally murdered his wife. But it said that Joaquin memorized the faces of each of his attackers, and that he swore that upon recovering from his wounds, that he would set out on a mission of revenge. So this next corrido or ballad is a story of the Robin Hood of Mexico, or the Mexican Robin Hood, el corrido de Joaquín Murrieta. Joaquín Murrieta. Ay, para ustedes, no huevos, ¿eh? I come from Monterrey. I came up to the border one bright sunny day. I told the immigration man I got to USA. He looked at me and laughed, and this is what he said. No way, Jose. No way, you go to USA. No way, Jose. If you don't got your papers, you don't go to USA. But I am very stubborn. I jumped the fence next day. I took a Greyhound bus and went to San Jose. I wound up washing dishes there for 50 cents a day. I told the man I want a raise. This is what he said. No way. Jose. No way. You get a raise today. No way. Jose. If you don't got green card, you don't get no raise today. door, and this is what she said. No way, Jose. No way that you can stay, God forbid. No way, Jose. But if you put ring on my finger, then you can stay and play. Caramba, how I suffered until one lucky day I met a man named Bruce, and this is what he said. I give you plenty money and a place where you can stay. But then he tried to kiss me. I think that he was gay. No way, no way. I think I go back to Monterrey. But anyway, listen, even after all the hardship we go through and the discrimination and the dangers and everything, you know, as I said earlier, once you are here in California, you don't ever want to return anywhere. You know, you want to bring people over. Hey, goodbye to California. This is the story of a man who is deported because he was here like Mr. Jose Gonzalez without papers, and they were deporting him. But he swears that he will return. Volveré, volveré, volveré. Para ustedes, for you, adiós, California.
Adiós California, yo no voy me llevar, pero llevo tu presencia. Si Dios me concede, muy pronto regreso, aquí dejo mi sentencia. Volveré, volveré, volveré. Ay Diosito, dame licencia. Estoy encerrado, perdí con las leyes, andaba de contrabando. Pero yo con gusto por esa morena me voy a seguir grifando. Volveré, volveré, volveré. Ay, mamá, mis amores están esperando.
¡Linda California! Sí, señor, ya pues no me lleves, pataquete y todo. Para el Tomasito.
Si acaso el destino detiene a la muerte y no me acorta los pasos, yo sigo pensando de pronto regreso, no me importan los fracasos. Volveré, volveré, volveré a estrellarla otra vez en mis brazos. Adiós California, ya yo me despido, me llevan para mi tierra.
Para México, para México.
Pero yo con gusto por esa morena vuelvo a cruzar la frontera. Volveré, volveré, volveré. Solamente que Dios no lo quiera.
Adiós, California. Thank you very much. We really want to thank you for being here. At this time, I'd like to take this opportunity and my privilege to introduce the members of Los Compadres. Over on my left, the dynamite musician, guitar player from the state of Wyoming. I'm trying to say maybe singing the only Chicano in the state of Wyoming blues. Please, a round of applause for Tomás Montoya. And on my other side over here, on my right, another dynamite musician from San Jose, California, dynamite musician, good friend. I've known him since we were touring with El Teatro Campesino way back in the 70s, I believe. Please, a round of applause for Rick Boogie Espinosa.
My pleasure to introduce my compadre, the founder compadre Noé Montoya. Please give it a applause.
As again, I'd just like to mention that the purpose of Los Compadres is to educate, to teach our culture, to share our culture with everyone who's willing to listen, because we need to learn from each other's cultures and begin to become one nation of God, as it says in the, what is it, the Pledge of Allegiance, I believe, or whatever. We need to come together. We are starting a new century. Let's start out right. You know, we've had too much hatred in the past. The stories Charlie has shared with us. We'd like to thank also Cactus Bob and Prairie Flower and Peg Reza for being out here this evening earlier. So a round of applause for them, please. These shows that bring people together, we hope that you go away going, hey, those guys weren't bad after all, you know. Anyway, what I'd like to do is last song here. It's a tribute to the beautiful Mexican song written by another good friend of ours, the godfather of Chicano music, Mr. Lalo Guerrero. So this song is called La Canción Mexicana. Adelita quisiera ser mi novia, y si Adelita fuera together before we leave you all. So Charlie, and I got Peg, whoever else is left. Right, all right. Well, I guess since we're all here and this is California and it's a state made up of different ethnic groups, it's only fitting that we do a very popular Woody Guthrie song, of course, called "This Land Is Your Land." If you know the words, join in. If you don't know the words, clap or practice your grito. Right?
It'll be a test.
This next song is also was made very popular in the 60s and 70s through the United Farm Workers Movement. It was a special song that was the favorite of the good leader Cesar Chavez, who was just given a state holiday, and it's about time, so in his honor, got no national anthem. But you don't stand up for this one, you dance. This song has been around for many, many years in the tropical jungles of Veracruz and here in the United States. I think you'll recognize it. The Chicano National Anthem.
much. Thank you.